Hello, students. Welcome to Pramati Hillview Academy digital class. Today, I'm going to take up a very beautiful chapter, The Lost Child, from the supplementary reading Moments. Let's get started, children. Before we learn about the chapter, let me give you a bit of introduction to the lesson, The Lost Child. The Lost Child is the story of a small child who gets lost in a fair. He had gone with his parents to the fair, but loses them when he gets engrossed in looking at a roundabout swing. The story highlights the bond of love and affection that the child shares with his parents. Before losing them, he had been demanding different things like sweets, balloons, flowers, swings, etc. Once he loses them, he is picked up by a stranger. The stranger tries to quieten the child by offering him all these things that he had demanded from his parents. But the child doesn't want them anymore. He wants his parents first. It was the festival of spring. From the wintry shades of narrow lanes and alleys came out a gaily clad humanity. Some walked, some rode on horses, others sat being carried in bamboo and bullock carts. One little boy ran between his father's legs, brimming over to be full of something with life and laughter. The story is set in the spring season. As the winter season had just ended, all the people came out of their houses. They were cheerful as the chilling cold weather had ended. People conveyed through the different modes: foot, horses, bamboo carts, and bullock carts. A little child was accompanied by his parents. He ran excitedly and often banged into his father's legs. He was full of life, excitement, and laughter. Come, child, come, called his parents as he lagged behind, was left behind, fascinated by, attracted to, the toys in the shops that lined the way, were set up along the way. The child was attracted to the toys which were displayed at the various stalls. As he would be left behind, his parents would call him to come with them. He hurried towards his parents, his feet obedient to their call, his eyes still lingering, means losting, on the receding, means left behind, as he walked ahead toys. As he came to where they had stopped to wait for him, he could not suppress the desire of his heart. Suppress, put an end to. Even though he well knew the word cold means without any feelings, stare of refusal in their eyes. The child was obedient and would walk towards them on being called, but his eyes would keep on looking at the toys that he wanted. As he reached them, he couldn't control his desire to buy a toy. He was familiar to the reaction that they would give. He knew that they would stare him, indicating denial to buy him the toy. The child knew the emotional-less way in which they would stare at him. I want the toy, he pleaded. Pleaded means request. His father looked at him red-eyed in his familiar tyrant's way. Tyrant, a cruel and oppressive. His mother melted. Melted means becoming tender and loving. By the free spirit of the day was tender and giving him her finger to hold and said, "Look, child, what is before you?" The child was unable to control his desire any longer. He said he wanted to buy the toy. The father's eyes grew red with anger. He looked at the child just like a cruel ruler was trying to oppress him. The mother became emotional due to the cheerful mood. Lovingly, she gave her finger to the child to hold and guided him to a place. She asked him to see what was in front of him. It was a flowering mustard field, pale like melting gold, pale, dull, as it swept across miles and miles of even land. A group of dragonflies were bustling about on their gaudy, which means extremely bright and showy, purple wings intercepting the flight of a lone black bee or butterfly in search of sweetness from the flowers. The child followed them in the air with his gaze, till one of them would still its wings and rest, and he would try to catch it. But it would go fluttering, flapping up into the air. When he had almost caught it in his hands, then his mother gave a cautionary call, cautionary warning. "Come, child, come, come on to the footpath." There was a vast field full of bright yellow colored mustard flowers. They seemed like flowing streams of gold and were widespread. A group of dragonflies, black bees, and butterflies buzzed around, sucking the nectar from the flowers. The child looked at them, and as they flew around, when one of the dragonflies sat somewhere, he tried to catch them, but the tiny creatures would fly away the next minute. The mother called out him as they started walking down the footpath. He ran towards his parents gaily and walked abreast, side by side, and facing the same way of them for a while, being, however, soon left behind, attracted by the little insects and worms along the footpath that were teeming out, means to pour or empty out from their hiding places to enjoy the sunshine. The child ran towards his parents. He walked next to them, but after a few steps he stopped to see the insects who were coming out of the soil. Once again the child was left behind. "Come, child, come," his parents called from the shade of a grove, means a small wood or group of trees, where they had seated themselves on the edge of a well. He ran towards them. His parents called him. They sat next to a well under the shady trees. The child once again ran and joined his parents. A shower of young flowers fell upon the child as he entered the grove, and, forgetting his parents, he began to gather the raining petals in his hands. But lo, he heard the cooing of doves and ran towards his parents, shouting, "The dove! The dove!" The raining petals dropped from his forgotten hands. As the child entered the shady forested area, he was welcomed by a shower of flowers. He forgot his parents and started collecting the petals that had fallen. Just then he heard the cooing of doves and was excited to see them. He started chasing the birds, and in that process the petals fell from his hand. This shows that as the child got attracted towards the next thing, he forgot what he had been doing earlier. Come, child, come. They called to the child, who had now gone running in the wild capers. Capers, a playful skipping movement, round the banyan tree, and gathering him up, they took the narrow, winding footpath which led to the fair through the mustard fields. The parents called the child who was running and playing around a banyan tree. They lifted him and walked down a narrow, twisting lane through which they crossed the mustard fields and reached the fair. The story is based on the theme of the close bond that children share with their parents. A child looks at this world with wide eyes. He gets attracted towards most of the things he comes across in daily life. The child wants to possess all the things that he gets attracted to. But very often, parents aren't able to fulfill the wishes of the child. That is what has happened here. But the real and exciting incident happens when the boy enters the fair. I will let you know about that incident in my next video. Until then, bye children, take care.